streaming and science fiction specifically seems to cost so much these days. And we already knew Andor cost quite a bit. So Tony Gilroy revealed that to produce both seasons of Andor cost $650 million. They actually had to fight for the budget for season 2 because Disney told them that streaming is dead. We don't have the money we had before. So we fought hard about money, but they never cleaned anything up. That freedom comes with responsibilities. They really need to get a handle on how to produce sci-fi on a budget. I think we need to go back to a degree of filmmaking techniques of the past that just didn't cost this much. Andor looks great. It really does. And you can see the budget. Maybe some things could have been tightened up to where we could have had more seasons of television with less money. Could we have had that? Would people have wanted that instead? What would you have liked? Would you have liked more seasons of Andor, maybe with less episodes in a season? It's 12 episodes a season, but maybe if it was 10 or 8 episodes, but you had at least 4 seasons of television, would you have wanted that? I mean, initially they were planning to do 5 seasons. That is a long commitment, especially if it takes like 3 years in between seasons. Basically, I guess the compromise for him to get his funding for season 2 was that there wasn't going to be any more. That season 2 is it. That's your money and you aren't getting any more. You're not getting any more seasons, so make it worth it. And that's why they had season 2 split up into those 3 episode arcs with a year in between to get to the Battle of Yavin. I just can't help but wonder if things could have been tightened up a bit for the budget, that we could have just had more story. I'm completely fine with that. I love, to this day, still watching Babylon 5 and Stargate, all of the shows of the past that, just didn't have these expensive budgets and they were really tight on the funding. And back then when you had like 24 episodes every year. And it's crazy that now we've come to this place where it's so expensive to make one short season, what used to be like a mini series length of a season, and then take 3 years in between to produce the next one. It's getting ridiculous. And I just wonder, like, what is costing so much? When you compare The Acolyte to Andor, you can definitely see Andor's budget. I mean, The Acolyte was 8 30-minute episodes and cost almost $300 million. Pretty crazy. And then you compare that to Andor. It really just depends, I guess, if you have other sources of revenue. A lot of streaming platforms are having to incorporate ads now. Even if you pay extra to not have ads, even there's ads. So we might as well just have cable. And I think that's another thing too, the sheer volume of streaming services today, that most people just aren't willing to pay that much money for it, especially if there's platforms that don't offer a ton of content that they would watch. What most people are watching is YouTube. That's the highest viewed platform, and there can only be one Netflix. We're not going to have another Netflix. Hulu is the closest thing. They've had to kind of merge together in order to be profitable. Disney Plus was never profitable and wasn't going to see profit until they merged with Hulu. And of course, Hulu has all of these ad tiers and all of these other sources of additional revenue, and it may as well be cable. But Disney Plus on its own just doesn't offer that same appeal as Netflix. And Netflix, for its faults, does have a lot of like garbage content, but its sheer volume of content too is why people keep subscribed. And there are some gems in there. Disney Plus is the problem. I don't think streaming's dead. It just never was alive to begin with. And if you're spending this amount of money, it's just absolutely absurd. And I think for Star Wars, I think they're going to pivot more now just towards films, which is a good thing. But also, I think a show could be good and could be profitable, or could at least not be a giant sinkhole of money. And honestly, I feel like you built all of these assets, all of these costumes and props for Andor, all the sets that you built, and it would be kind of a waste, I think, if you didn't use all of this infrastructure that you've already made. You already sunk money into it, into creating all of these props and designs, costumes and artwork, and all of these details that were in Andor. It'd just be a shame to not continue to use it or repurpose it for other things. Like, you already spent the money, you could still use it. You could set a show on Yavin. You could do something with the New Republic. I don't have hope for Star Wars on television, and it's kind of sad that even their best show was so expensive. It just couldn't justify its existence anymore, and that's, at the end of the day, what killed it. Or again, it just wasn't alive to begin with. And it's a shame. I think the show looks great, but I still think that things could still look okay, but just concentrate on the story. And I think people will give some leeway. I think people would just like more story, that it doesn't have to look or be so expensive to create all these new things and all these new sets. It's amazing what some filmmakers can come up with when they're strapped to a minimal budget and they have to figure stuff out. They have to improvise. They have to troubleshoot. They have to think about things. The amazing filmmaking techniques we've seen in the past are so simple and yet create these amazing visual shots. And that's what Star Wars started out as, this pioneer in filmmaking technology with the models used for the ships and how real that looked. And models too are so good and they stand the test of time visually. You can just compare Lord of the Rings to the Hobbit trilogy and it's no question what looks better. I'm not an industry insider, so I don't know, but I just feel like if it's filmed in a cave, if the writing is good, we will watch. Great characters, a great story, people will be engrossed. I miss the days of SG-1 in Atlantis, 20 plus episodes and a smaller budget compared to today. Because it was smaller, because it was more contained, and they had to think outside the box to try to make their budget work for them, well, they had to be creative. They had to have at least great writing and great character development and great chemistry between their actors. And when you have more episodes, that just makes us so much more invested into their journeys. When we see them continually meeting new challenges and new adversaries and growing those friendships together, that's what makes it so iconic. It's what makes it have a footprint in the pop culture sphere when it really has that impact. The majority of Disney Plus shows won't have that. And Andor does touch a lot of people, but because of all the bad stuff, it's just driven away so many people. So I just don't think it will reach that same place the films had and other EU stories had, which is a shame. I just feel like if this show was given 5 seasons and try to stay within a reasonable budget, I think most people would just want more stories over just stunning visuals. I mean, yes, the visuals are nice, but we can also tell a good story keeping it contained. It just requires creativity, imagination. If you're able to pump it out too in 1 or 2 years, a season, that would be great. It would keep it in the public eye. I actually forgot that Stranger Things still had another season. It's been so long and the actors are all grown up now. It's just so ridiculous at this point to see them as full-grown adults. And it's going to come out at the end of this year. It's crazy how long it's taken for this show to complete 5 seasons. And again, short seasons too, like 10, 12 episodes. And One Piece also, it's going to be 3 years now. They just revealed that 2026, One Piece will come out. Who knows when? And that was a great show. But yeah, taking 3 years in between is ridiculous. This doesn't seem to be an issue with other shows like Slow Horses. I don't know if y'all seen that. It's another show on Apple. It's a great like spy thriller. And Gary Oldman, it's one of his best roles, I think. But yeah, they have like a season of Slow Horses every year. Obviously, it's a different show. It's not sci-fi, but nothing looks cheap. They do a lot of filming on location, so that's got to be complicated to arrange and to set up. The numbers for Star Wars shows, it's just been a huge pattern of decline. Bad show after bad show after bad show. I just don't think the subscribers for Disney Plus were enough. They had wanted, I guess, when COVID started and they thought, hey, we're on the cusp of streaming and this is where everything is going now. They just put all their chips into that, into streaming, and they didn't think about quality. They just were thinking about content for content's sake. And if they had garnered goodwill, if they created great show after great show, then I think it'd be very different. As it is, they just thought about quantity over quality. It's shown that they could never make a profit. They were spending so much money on all these Star Wars shows. Well, Kenobi, they went very cheap on, which is incredible that they slashed the budget for Kenobi, but gave Leslie Headland so much money just to pump out 8 30-minute episodes. I think Kenobi was only 80 million. And you could definitely tell it was done on the cheap. If you just thought about story instead of content for content's sake, yeah, it would all be very different because Star Wars is so beloved. Well, it was. It's incredible to think about how one of the most commercially successful IPs ever has now been reduced to this state.